What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Kilo Loco, and today we're going to be going over string formatting. Now, we're actually going to be using an app that we created in the last video, where it's essentially just a basic timer app where it's using a timer, it's updating a label, and then we're able to pause, start it, and we're also able to reset it. Now, I'm actually going to be using this same app to demonstrate how string formatting works. But before we jump into that, I just want to say make sure you go over to kiloloco.com, check it out. I do have an all access membership, which comes with the ability to reach out to me on Slack if you ever run into any problems. If you ever need help on anything, we can talk there, and it's only $8 a month. Such a steal. So just make sure you check that out. So let's go ahead and jump over into the code just so that we can see what we're currently working with real quick. Now, if you take a look at the storyboard, it's all going to be left the same. If you want the starter project, it's going to be in the link below. You can download it for free. And let's take a look at our view controller. Nothing too crazy going on. We just have some stuff to handle the timer. And then we have stuff to update the UI and to also update the timer itself. Now, what we want to do is for this timer, we want to update it so that we can actually track the milliseconds, right? We want to be able to, we don't want to just know seconds. We want to know milliseconds. Oh yeah. So what we want to do is we want to modify our timer to fire more often than just every single second. We want to have our timer fire every 100th of a second. So let's go ahead and do that right now. All we need to do is just say 0.01. That's how often we want our timer to fire, because we want it to go to the hundredths position, so that we can get double-digit milliseconds, right? And what that means is if we're going to be updating it by 0.01 every time we fire, we want to also update the duration by 0.01, because if we didn't, then we'd have a very large number. I'll tell you that much. All right, so let's go ahead and run this, and let's take a look at what happens. Oh, we can't do this real quick just because it's set as an integer up here. So I'm just going to say .0. Oh, yeah. And we're going to run that, and it's going to work now. Oh, yeah. All right, so I want to show you what happens if we were to do this. Now, remember, we're firing every 100th of a second, and I want to show you what it looks like. Look at that. Just zero, just craziness, man. It's crazy. And the reason for that is because it's actually shooting out the raw value of that actual of that duration. So if we go ahead and pause this, so let's go back over, and we're just going to add a print statement just so that we can see what our duration is. So go ahead and just print out the duration just so that we could take a look at it. And we're going to have to mark that with strong self because we're in a closure. So let's go ahead and run that one more time. All right, we're going to press play, and we're going to pause it. I just want to see what it looks like so far. So I want to show you what it's actually printing out. This is what it's actually trying to put inside of the label, and this is what we're seeing. We're seeing those zeros right here, right there in the middle. So that's why we want to be able to format it, because unless we format it, it's going to be very difficult for us to actually show the milliseconds. So how do we do that? Well, let's go ahead and find out. All right, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're just going to want to change this string the way that it's just converting this duration into a string. So what we're going to do is let's go ahead and start over again right here where we're setting the label, and we're going to leave the duration, the actual duration alone. We're going to, the way that it updates the values, we want to keep all that the exact same way that it is. The functionality is perfectly fine. But what we want to do is we want to just update the way that it's displayed, and that's through the label.text. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually insert a format for the string to represent our duration in. So let's go ahead and add that right now. All right, and as you can see, this is how we would do that. This is how we insert a format for a string. Now you're probably thinking like, what the hell is this caca? And I'm right there with you. Like, it's super, really, like it's archaic, right? It's just super cryptic. Like it's kind of hard to read this, right? But once you kind of understand what's going on here, it's not too crazy confusing. Now the percentage sign is essentially saying this is where we're going to start the insertion of our variable, which is being referenced right here, our duration, right? And what we want to do is we're going to say this point is because we're going to be working with hundredths of hundredth of a second, right? So we want to work with hundredths of a second, and we want it to be to the second place. So if I were to put 1, it would be to the tenths, right? If I were to do 0, 1, or if I were to do 2, then that's going to be to the hundredths, if that makes sense. And then the F is simply indicating that this is going to be a floating point number. So let's go ahead and run that one more time, and let's see what that looks like. All right, so we got our beautiful app right here, and we're just going to go ahead and press play. And as you can see, now we're getting the double digits in our milliseconds, and they're counting up, and then we're getting seconds, right? So let's go ahead and reset that. Let's go ahead and change it over back to just, if we want just single milliseconds, and let's see what that looks like. Now, once again, if we just wanted to go one space over, we just change that to 1. So we're just going to go ahead and run it now, and we're going to press play. And as you can see, we're getting just the tenths position for the milliseconds. So this is kind of how string formatting works. This is the basic understanding of string formatting, is that you work with a modulus or a percentage sign, and then you kind of specify what you're looking to get right here. So that's pretty much string formatting. If you want to look at the different ways that you can do string formatting, if you just go over to the Apple documentation and search for string format specifiers, what you'll see is all the different types of formatting that you can do. So we can use digits, which are, integers, which you can just kind of assume the D stands for digit. And then, we use float. And there's all these other ones that you can use based off of what you're trying to accomplish. Now, let's go ahead and try to make an example with using an integer, just so that we could see another way that we would do the formatting of a string. Now, what I want to do is I want to get the seconds, and I want to get the milliseconds as well, right? Just how we have it. But instead of having a 0.0, usually you see it on the clocks as a colon. So let's just have these two separated by a colon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the duration into an actual into milliseconds, and I'm going to turn it into seconds, doing the calculations and doing a little bit of maths here and there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to plug it into our string and format it properly. So let's do that now. All right, so as you can see, we have a calculation for our milliseconds. All we're going to do is we're just going to multiply our duration by 100, then get the modulo value of that integer duration, and that's going to be our actual milliseconds. And then we have our seconds, which is calculated by grabbing the duration, turning it into integer, getting the modulo value over 60, and then that's going to give us our seconds. So now what we want to do is we actually want to plug this into our string. But remember, we're no longer using floating point numbers. Now what we want to do is we want to work with integers. Not only do we want to work with integers, but we also want to make sure that it has the padding of a 0 in front of the seconds. So it should start off at 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and add that format right now. All right, so as you can see, it's looking quite different than it did before, and we're still using the same string constructor as before, the same string initializer as before, where we're using a format, but we're using a different format. So let's take a look at the format real quick. Now, as I said, everything should be starting off with 0 and then that number. It should be padded by a 0 because that's how most stopwatches look. We would have 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, and then once it gets to 10, it's just 1, 0, right? 1, 1, 1, 11, right? So that's what we want. So that's what we're doing right here. Once again, modulo says that this is where we're starting. We're going to insert a value right here. The 0, 2 is saying that we want it to be 2 decimal places padded by a 0, or not 2 decimal places, but two figures, I guess you would say. And then we also are specifying that it's going to be a whole number, an integer, a digit. And then this colon right here is simply just to separate it. This could be like a letter, this could be an emoji, whatever you want to put right here. This is not part of the format. The format. This is just saying we want these two values to be separated by a colon. So that's all we're saying right there. And then once again, we're just following the same format right here. Now, as you can see, after the first comma, after you specify the format, you could put in several different arguments, and it's just going to go in order. So as you can see, we have seconds here first, and that's going to be entered into this first modulo position. Then we have milliseconds, and that's going to be entered into the second modulo position. So once again, a little bit weird, but this is how we do it. So let's go ahead and run it, and let's see what it looks like now. All right, so our label's still starting off with 0, and that's because of the storyboard. But as soon as we start it, as you can see, it's being padded by that 0, 03, 04, right? And then it's separated by a colon, and then we have the double-digit millisecond value right here, which is pretty cool. So that's going to be it. This is just an introduction to how string formatting kind of works. There are a couple other different things that you would do, but it's really specialized situations where you would ever really need this. But I just wanted to show you this is something that you could do, and it may actually help you when you're working with numbers and you're converting them into strings to display in your UI. So that's going to be all. Thanks for your time, guys. I just want to let you know that this is a way to format strings, but we're going to continue on. I'm going to make another video after this, still, once again, using our timer app. And I'm going to actually show you the best way to be implementing our actual values for our timer, because not everywhere in the world uses the same exact timer formatting. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's, you know, if we're going to be making this a real app, we want it to be worldwide, baby. So I'm going to actually show you guys how to do that in the next video. So thank you for sticking around. Thank you for checking out how to format strings, and make sure you go out there and keep coding passionately.